Chapter 191. Becoming a recognized temporal entity was an abstract, terrifying form of tenure. The Chronos Council's withdrawal didn't bring peace. It brought a deeper, more profound silence. The other sovereigns, sensing the Council's standoffish stance, also seemed to pause their over-attacks. It was as if Kaelen had been moved to a different chessboard, one with rules he didn't yet understand. He spent the following weeks in a state of hypervigilance, his reflective insight constantly scanning not just space, but the flow of time around him, watching for subtle edits or incursions. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders, the responsibility of safeguarding a timeline he had fought so hard to create. The city, blissfully unaware, continued to thrive in its newfound hope. The Vale fortification stats slowly climbed to 3.5%, but Kaelen felt like a gardener who had nurtured a beautiful, rare flower, only to be told he now had to protect it from frosts that could arrive from any season, past or future. Chapter 192. The new threat, when it came, was not a sovereign, but a symptom of the world they lived in. A new, popular drug hit the streets. They called it Glimmer. It was cheap, potent, and promised a few hours of blissful, manic euphoria. The catch was the crash, a deep, debilitating despair that left users more vulnerable than ever to the lingering effects of the anomaly and the whispers of phantoms. Worse, the drug's chemical signature was strange. Dorian analyzed a sample. It's not entirely natural, he reported, his face grim. It's catalyzed. Someone is using alchemical principles to artificially amplify its emotional payload. The highs are higher, the lows are lower. It's like they're farming negative energy. The source was a new gang, calling themselves the Shade-Touched. They were organized, ruthless, and their operatives seemed to have minor, but real, supernatural abilities, enhanced speed, a chilling touch, the ability to blend with shadows. They weren't just drug dealers. They were a cult, and their product was a weapon aimed at the city's spiritual defenses. Chapter 193. Obsidian Star found themselves on the front lines of a very different war. They started running operations against the Shade-Touched, raiding distribution points and safe houses. The fights were brutal and dirty. The gang members fought with a fanatical zeal, and their shadowy powers made them dangerous, unpredictable opponents. During a raid on a warehouse, Kaelen confronted one of their lieutenants. The man moved like smoke, his form blurring. When Kaelen pinned him, he looked up with eyes that were entirely black, devoid of whites or iris. He is coming, the lieutenant hissed, a fanatical grin on his face. The Lord in the shadows. He has seen the light you kindle, Crow, and he finds it offensive. We are the welcome committee. We are preparing the world for his arrival. Then, before Kaelen could question him further, the man's body dissolved into a pool of living darkness that evaporated into the air. This wasn't just a gang. It was a vanguard. Chapter 194. The Lord in the Shadows. The name resonated with a deep, primal fear. Dorian's research dug up ancient, fragmented texts speaking of a sovereign who did not seek to rule the broken world or unmake it, but to consume it. A being of pure, sentient hunger that dwelled in the spaces between realities, feeding on light, hope, and life itself. The Shade-Touched were its missionaries. Their drug, Glimmer, was a tool to soften up the population, to make them tastier, more vulnerable. They were salting the earth before the main course arrived. This changed everything. The other sovereigns were, in their own twisted ways, part of the world's ecosystem. This lord was an invasive species, a cancer from outside. Kaelen's purpose sharpened with a new, chilling clarity. He wasn't just fortifying the Vale against decay. He was building a wall against a devourer. Chapter 195. Fighting the Shade-Touched was a draining, demoralizing task. For every dealer they took down, two more seemed to appear. The drug's popularity spread, creating pockets of artificial despair that weakened the Vale and attracted phantoms. Undoing their careful work, they needed to cut off the head. They needed to find the source of Glimmer. The trail led them deep into the city's decaying underbelly, to a place known as the Sunken Market, a black market bazaar that operated in the flooded ruins of an old subway station. It was a lawless place, a nexus for every forbidden trade, and the rumored heart of the shade-touched operation. It was a perfect trap, and they knew it. But they had no choice. We go in fast, grab the head chemist or the local boss, and get out. Silas outlined the plan. No heroics. This is an intelligence grab. They prepared for their most dangerous infiltration yet, descending into the damp, echoing darkness beneath the city. Chapter 196. The Sunken Market was a surreal, nightmarish place. Stalls built on rickety platforms sat in stagnant, chest-deep water, illuminated by flickering chemical lights. The air was thick with the smell of rot, ozone, and strange spices. Things were traded here that had no name in any sane language. They moved through the crowd, a mix of desperate humans and things that only looked human. Kaelen's reflective insight was a cacophony of warnings, cursed objects, bound minor phantoms, and the pervasive, oily signature of the shade-touched. They found their target at the center of the market, a woman known as the Alchemist. She was surrounded by vials and burners, meticulously refining raw glimmer into its final, potent form. She had the same black, soulless eyes. As they moved to apprehend her, the market fell silent. From the shadows of a collapsed tunnel, a figure emerged. It was tall, wrapped in tattered black robes that seemed to drink the light. It didn't walk. It flowed. It was the local boss, and the power radiating from it was not that of an enhanced human. It was the real thing, a fragment of the Lord in the shadows. Chapter 197. The fight was instant and brutal. The shade-touched boss, a shadow spawn, moved with impossible speed, its form shifting and dissolving. It didn't use weapons. It lashed out with tendrils of solidified nothingness that drained the light and warmth from whatever they touched. Rorik's shield glowed blue as a tendril struck it, the inertial field straining to hold back the entropic force. Lyra's rounds passed through its shadowy body with little effect. Jax was hard-pressed to even get close. Kaelen summoned the Warden's blade. The void edge seemed to be the only thing that could harm it, each cut causing the creature to shriek in a soundless void. But it was fast, regenerating from lesser wounds almost instantly. This was a minion, a mere sliver of the Lord's power, and it was pushing them to their limits. The true scope of the threat they faced was staggering. Chapter 198. Kaelen realized they couldn't win a battle of attrition in this place. The shadow spawn was drawing power from the despair-soaked environment. He changed tactics. He stopped trying to kill it and instead focused on its connection to this world. He used his reflective insight to see the thin, black thread of energy that linked it to its master in the void. He shaped his domain, compressing it into a blade of pure, assertive reality, just as he had against the Chronos Council's Stasis field. But this time, he aimed it at the thread. He thrust the conceptual blade forward. It didn't cut the thread. It sealed it. The Warden's power of mending acted on the connection itself, welding the breach in reality shut. The shadow spawn froze, its form shuddering. The link to its power source was severed. With a final, silent scream of rage, it destabilized and imploded into a single point of absolute blackness that then winked out of existence. The Alchemist, seeing her protector gone, tried to flee, but Lyra's well-placed tranquilizer dart took her down. They had their prisoner, but the victory felt hollow. They had just swatted a mosquito, and now they knew the size of the dragon. Chapter 199. The interrogation of the Alchemist was conducted in the secure confines of the Bastion, under a combination of Dorian's truth serums and the Bastion's calming influence. She broke. She confirmed their worst fears. The Lord in the shadows was not just coming. It was already here, its consciousness seeping into their reality through the weaknesses they had been trying to fix. The shade-touched were its hands, and Glimmer was its tool to pry the world open wider. The Lord feeds on endings. The Alchemist mumbled, her eyes glazed, on faded hope, on extinguished light. Your little sanctuaries, they are like lanterns in its night. It wants to snuff them out. It wants to taste the despair when this city's hope finally dies. She gave them a name, a location, a place where a major ritual was planned to create a permanent fissure, a gate large enough for a significant portion of the Lord's power to manifest physically. The final battle was no longer a theoretical future. It had a time and a place. Chapter 200. The location was the city's old observatory, built on the highest hill overlooking the metropolis. It was a place meant for looking at the stars, at the vast, hopeful cosmos. Now, it was to be the site where a devourer of worlds would be invited in. They had 1 week. 1 week to prepare for a fight that would dwarf every battle they had faced before. 1 week to fortify their position, gather their strength, and make their stand. Kaelen stood in the bastion, feeling the steady pulse of the sanctuary core through their network. He looked at his team. Silas, Lyra, Jax, Rorik. He thought of Dorian, of the city above, of all the fragile hope they had nurtured. They had built bastions and sanctuaries. They had fought sovereigns of reflection, weavers, and time itself. They had won the city's soul. Now, they had to defend it against the end of everything. The Ashen Crow had spent its life learning to mend. Now, it would learn what it meant to be a wall.